All right, I guess we'll stop watching volleyball and start doing our live show. I think a lot of people watching the Pitt volleyball match, number 5 Panthers at number 11. SMU taking them on, just won the first set, and they're moving on to the second. So hopefully you're split screening it a little bit. Maybe you need to listen to the volleyball, in which case I understand, but we'd appreciate if you tune in here as well. We're certainly keeping an eye on it as we begin this week's Panther-Lair Show. We'll get Jim Hammett in here in a minute, and obviously we got a lot to talk about heading into Pitt's game against Louisville, the fourth game of the season coming here in week 5. Panthers hosting Louisville at Acrisure Stadium, noon kickoff on Saturday. And it's kind of funny because we've been talking about this for like a week and a half. Well, you have this off week. I mean, we spent all of last week talking about the West Virginia game. We've spent all of this week on the Morning Pit talking about the West Virginia game. We did it on the live show on Wednesday night last week. We're doing it here again on the live show. We'll probably talk about the West Virginia game some more. We'll talk about this Louisville game and the matchup, but just ready for some damn football. Like, let's move on to the game because I'm just tired of rehashing the same things over and over again. Penalties and run game and defense and West Virginia and bad decisions and quarterback and probably burying the lead there because we've talked about the quarterback as much as anything, if not more than anything. But that's the way it goes when you have an off week. I guess, I don't know. I wonder if we would have more to talk about if Pitt had won at West Virginia or more to talk about since they lost. Probably depends on the circumstances. If they had won just because, like, Javon McIntyre gets the safety, and so they won like what'd that be, 26-24 or something like that, as opposed to going into overtime and everything. Although I guess the outcome probably would have changed. West Virginia probably wouldn't have gone for the field goal if they were trailing in that particular situation. But if it had gone like that and there was just one play that changed and Pitt got the win, we probably would still be having a lot of the same conversations because a lot of the same concerns would still exist. It would just exist around a 3-0 team as opposed to a 2-1 team. So maybe we'd still be talking a lot. They probably would have had to have a lot of success in Morgantown, played a pretty good game and got the win for us to have really not much to talk about during the off week. But that wasn't the case. They blew it in a lot of ways, and we've had plenty to discuss. I'm sure Jim is also watching the volleyball as the second set gets underway, but let's bring him in here and hope he's not too distracted. Jim, you're watching the volleyball match this evening?
I am now. I initially tried to turn it on, and there was still Notre Dame, North Carolina women's soccer on TV. So I missed like the first set.
You don't just watch on the app, like watch online?
Well, I guess like if I would have wanted to go through the trouble, I did that. But then I decided to watch Paul Skeen's last inning of the year.
Yeah, whatever. Fine. How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to end the year with a 1.97 ERA. No big deal.
I guess he's pretty good. The only game I went to that he pitched, he didn't pitch all that well. So I was kind of like, what the heck? What's the big deal? There was this weird point in the spring when like the power was out in half of Mount Lebanon. So they closed all the schools. And I was like, what are we going to do on a Thursday afternoon? Well, let's go to the PNC Park. Oh, Skeens is pitching. How about that? But anyway, Jim, if we had gone through the last week and a half, I'm sure you heard what I was saying there at the beginning, and Pitt had won the game at West Virginia, would we have less to talk about? Would it have been less interesting this week? Or do you think if they won just with like one play changing and the entire game still went the same, but only one play change to get them to win, I think people would still be kind of on edge about this team, even if they're 3-0, don't you?
I do, just because like even when Pitt built up that like 10-point fourth quarter lead, like they didn't play that well, especially on offense, especially the quarterback. So, I mean, obviously those are the two biggest talking points that we have. We've been talking about it all week. Now it's 2 weeks. And it was kind of funny. You were talking like, at the start about like, we've been rehashing these same things over and over. And like, I mean, you texted me 2 days ago and you're like, hey, I'm going to write about this, and this. And I kind of just said like, dude, I'm on to Louisville. Like I can't, I can't write about that West Virginia loss anymore. I mean, I think we've talked about enough, and maybe tonight is the night we put it to bed.
Well, the good thing about my article about penalties today is it wasn't just about West Virginia. It was about the whole last 11 years, because boy, howdy, has Pitt been bad at penalties. And I think we do it. You said it last week. You were like, how many times is Pitt ranked inside the top 100 in fewest penalties per game? And it's only like 4 times under Pat Narduzzi. It was like his first 3 seasons, and then once, whatever, in 2021, they were 87th. And every other year, they've been outside the top 100. I'm sure you saw some of the stats I had in the article today on Panther-Lair.com, where they've been called for 10 plus 20 penalties 22 times under Pat Narduzzi. That's basically once every 6 games. And the thing that gets me, and this stat I didn't put in the article, but I put on the message boards. So under Pat Narduzzi, Pitt is 7-15 when they commit 10 penalties or more. Not a surprise, right? If you're getting called for that many penalties, you're not going to have a winning record, probably. But what's remarkable to me is, so in 15 losses, when they committed 10 penalties or more, 7 of those 15 losses were 1-score games. Like the West Virginia game, like I can go down they lost to Wake Forest. No, they lost to NC State by 1 point in 2020. They had 13 penalties in that game. The Wake Forest game in 23, they had 13 penalties. They lost by 4. Clemson last year, they had 13 penalties, lost by 4. Georgia Tech in 2022, that game, with when what's his name? Brent Key was an interim coach. They just fired they committed 12 penalties and lost by 5. Last year to Virginia, they lost by 5. They had 11 penalties in that game. Miami in 2015, because this is not a recent phenomena, they lost by 5 and committed 10 penalties. And they even, if you want to stretch it a little bit, that Virginia Tech game in 2016, they had 9 penalties and they lost that game by 3. So, you have 7 losses, 7 1-score losses with 10 plus penalties. It's not a stretch of the imagination that even just taking a fewer penalties probably changes the outcome of 4 or 5 of those. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's conceivable that it could have changed the outcome of that game 2 weeks ago. So, like, it's not just an embarrassment. You're not just undisciplined, but it's costing you games to be penalized this much.
Yeah, and like I just kind of felt like even in that West Virginia loss, it was like I was kind of writing the same things like I've written before. Like we've been talking about this before. It's just one of those things. It's part of this program, and I don't know. We ask them about it all the time. We ask Pat Narduzzi, like, why do you guys commit so many penalties? What can you do differently? And I don't know what the answer is. I'm sure there are some ways to be disciplined, but like I don't know what that is. Like, hey, like just don't false start like inside the red zone and maybe we'll score a touch. Like I don't know what you can tell these guys. I mean, they're all college players at this point. They're basically like borderline professional athletes. I mean, like at a certain point, you just have to not commit the penalties. So I don't know. I mean, there are certain of those penalties. Like again, I think we talked about it last week. Like the Lyndon Cooper one, that's just stupid. Like, why are you jumping on a pile like after a play has been clearly stopped for a good 3 seconds? Like, that's just dumb. But like it really cost them points there. And, that was just one of many throughout the game.
And he said on Monday, you guys watched the tape, some of the penalties that were there and some that weren't there. I mean, you got to stop this. It's 131 games in. You've had 79 games when you've been flagged for 6 penalties or more. You've had 100 out of 131 games where you've been taking at least 5 penalties. They have more games with 9 plus penalties than they have games with 4 or fewer penalties over the course of the Narduzzi era. Like, they're not out to get you. Like, you're getting called for the penalties. I don't want to hear about this one's not right or this is a ticky-tacky or I don't know about this call or that call. Like, I don't know where it comes from. Like you said, I don't know how you correct it. I don't know if it's the head coach sets the tone. I mean, he certainly was pretty out of control in his first couple of years on the sidelines, and maybe that set a tone, but I think he has kind of toned it down a little bit. I don't know where it comes from, but I mean, like, this is one of the things you're known for. Your run defense and your, whatever, your sacks and this and that. Like, one of the defining characteristics of this program over the last 11 years is penalties. They are a penalized team. What you said, you got an email from, who is it, RotoWire or somebody like that today?
Yeah, something like that. And they like, you always get like pitched like, hey, like use this in an article if you want and definitely credit us. And it's
yes.
Like, okay. So I got that email and I think it was like Pitt is like the 4th most penalized team in college football, or I don't know, like this over what stretch, maybe just this year. Right.
I guess they're probably like determining that by like penalties per play or plays per penalty, probably something like that. Right. Like, cause they're 106th right now. Is that where they are? 106, so, 107, somewhere around there. Interesting. Louisville, tied with Pitt, also has like 23 penalties through 3 games. So Louisville is just as penalized as Pitt. We'll see who comes out on top. Of course, that game's on comes out on top in the penalties, I guess. It was funny, actually, before we talk about Louisville, there was one point in the West Virginia game where the broadcaster was like, yep, another penalty on the game, but it was really just like a West Virginia player's yellow mouthpiece had fallen out. And they're like, oh, no, that's a mouthpiece. But it was like, nobody really like batted an eye at it because everyone was like, yeah, probably that is another penalty. So, that one just happened to be a mouthpiece. But so this game against Louisville's 3-0. They've played Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, and Bowling Green. I don't really know who this Louisville team is. Like I wonder if they really have a good sense of who they are. I've talked to some Louisville people this week, and I think they're sort of curious as well. I think we're looking to see how Pitt bounces back from that last game and who they really are. But this Louisville game's a little bit, or this Louisville team is kind of an unknown, isn't it? Because they really haven't played anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you look at their team, and yeah, I mean, you beat Eastern Kentucky, you beat Bowling Green, you kind of struggle with James Madison. I mean, you kind of look at this team, there's injuries to key players. There's a transfer quarterback that you're not sure is quite good yet. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of pieces there. I think you trust Jeff Brom, and I think that's kind of what Louisville's banking on. It's like, okay, he'll get this quarterback right. They have a few explosive offensive players. If we stay healthy, maybe we could be good. But I think there's some concerns with that team because you look at their defense. Stanquan Clark, he's one of their best linebackers. He's out for the year, I think. Looking back at Louisville the past couple of years, they were a really good pass rushing team. They were kind of like Pitt in many ways. And like Ashton Jalot, he was their star guy, and he's in the NFL now. So, I mean, I think you kind of have a reworked defense. And, I mean, you look at Miller Lamas, like going on the offensive side of the ball, he's 2 passing touchdowns for 3 games. Like, that's not really lighting the world on fire. Isaac Brown's probably the most explosive player in the ACC. He might not play. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of things about this Louisville team. And I know they're favored by 4. I know Pitt has some injury issues as well. But I think it's kind of a toss-up in a lot of respects, just because you don't know who's going to be on the field for either team. And you really don't know what Louisville is just yet.
Yeah, that James Madison, I mean, like, James Madison was basically the only team with a pulse that Louisville has played. And that was a tie game going into the fourth quarter. It was like a minute and a half into the fourth quarter when Louisville scored on the go-ahead touchdown on a scoop and score. And it wasn't until the final 3 minutes that Isaac Brown ripped off a long run. He had been kind of bottled up to that point, rips off a long run for a touchdown to make it 28-14. But it's, they ended up winning by 2 scores, but it wasn't a 2-score game going into the fourth quarter or even going into the final 5 minutes of the game. So it's like, I don't know. And I looked in, as a team, they're passing it about the same number of times per game as they did last year. Miller Moss is throwing fewer passes per game than Tyler Shugg, but I mean, they've been, pulling quarterbacks and things like that. So it's hard to get a read on that. But yeah, I remember doing an interview in the preseason with some guys who just kind of cover the ACC, and we're talking about this and that and different quarterbacks. And one guy was like, I just don't know if Miller Moss is good. And it's kind of what you said of like, I think they're still trying to figure out if, like, is he actually a good player? And I mean, obviously, I think you and I both probably just trust Jeff Brom to do a good job with basically anything he touches, but like, who knows? And, it's interesting too. It looks like Louisville is a little bit weak on the interior offensive line. There might be an advantage. I keep like mentioning, I was talking to Louisville people, but I was on a Louisville radio show earlier tonight, and they were talking about like, where do you see a matchup that might favor Pitt? And I was like, well, Pitt's defensive tackles have actually been doing a pretty decent job. Sean Fitzsimmons had, I think, 5 pressures in the West Virginia game. Francis Brew has 7 pressures over the last 2 games. And as soon as I said, well, their defensive tackles have been doing a pretty good job, both guys on the radio, the Louisville guys were like, oh, no, that's a big problem. And so they're not feeling good about their interior offensive line. Maybe there's an opportunity there for Pitt to, it's been a long time since we've seen the interior, defensive pass rush for Pitt really impact a game. But maybe this will be one where they can get some pressure up the middle. And if you do that, it opens so much up. You know what I mean? Like, that creates so many opportunities for the defensive ends and the linebackers if you can get pressure up the middle. So maybe there's a chance there. I'm kind of with you that I'm a little surprised that it's still a 5-point line. Let me watch. They'll come out and they'll blow them out by like 28 points or something. But like, even without Desmond Reed, I don't know, if we assume that he's not going to play, I'm not sure I see these teams that far apart just yet, because what has Louisville really proven, right?
Yeah, and like to kind of speak to that like interior like advantage. I mean, if you recall last year, it was like one of the last games of the season. Sean Fitzsimmons blew up Louisville. Like he had a really,
Yeah,
really good game.
he did.
Like and that's probably an advantage Pitt's looking to. And we talked to Tim Douse earlier this week, and we asked about different guys and different situations. And like the one thing that like always sticks out to me when he talks about Sean Fitzsimmons is he's like, I know what I'm getting when I look on film from number 55. Like I know I'm getting a consistent rep every time. So, I mean, I think that's definitely one advantage Pitt has to look to create some pressure. I think Miller Boss has been sacked 6 times so far this season. So again, that's against not great competition. That's like the equivalent of being sacked 6 times against Central Michigan and Duquesne. So, I mean, that's kind of what it is. So I think Pitt has to really try to take advantage there. And again, if like Louisville's missing weapons, like obviously they have really good receivers. Chris Bell's good, but like if you're not sure about your quarterback and you take away his running back, it can get dicey. And I mean, I guess, on the flip side of things, you kind of saw that with Eli Holstein and Desmond Reed against West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats. Sean Fitzsimmons had 9 tackles and a sack at Louisville, which is, and he actually played well kind of down the stretch. He had 6 tackles against Virginia. He was, on the Pro Football Focus All-ACC Team of the Week against Louisville and Boston College. So, I mean, he had a decent finish to the season, and I think he's done well so far. I think Brew and Neal have played well. I mean, there might be an opportunity there. There might be an opportunity, but they obviously have to get out of their own way, and we're burying the lead because it's still largely about the quarterback. I think we talked a lot about the quarterback. Do you have any new thoughts about Eli Holstein and the quarterback situation? Anything from players or coaches said this week, or just new things that have occurred to you this week, Jim?
Not really. I mean, I think with Eli, it's just about going out and performing. I mean, I think there's a lot of things there. I mean, I think we've looked at it, overanalyzed it probably to an extent, but like, there are throws to be made even under pressure. I mean, even in situations like he's not getting pressured. I think that was maybe your Monday morning Pitt like topic. It's like he's not getting pressured more than like the average ACC quarterback. Like he's right in line with just kind of about everyone else. So it just comes down to, making plays. I mean, I know everyone wants to say, oh, the offensive line's terrible. They're doing an awful job. He's under pressure the entire time. But like, I don't know. That's kind of college football. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? Like nobody had like, how many teams have a really, really, really good offensive line? 5, 10, maybe. Right. Like, so everyone has to deal with this. Kenny Pickett had to deal with it. Like he was under pressure in 2021 and he still put up good numbers. So, I mean, I think at a certain point, especially in this offense where like it's a lot about it is just getting the ball out quickly, like finding guys in space. Like there's not a lot of reads that need to be made most of the time. It's like a lot of things are just kind of right there in front of you. So I think it's just a matter of Eli Holstein stepping up and just making those throws.
Yeah, to your point about the pressure and the numbers in the ACC, he's 7th in the ACC in percentage of dropbacks where he's been under pressure. I mean, he's behind 6 other guys, and his completion percentage under pressure is 47.4, which is not good, but it's more or less in line with what most guys. It's actually a little bit better than like Kyron Jones and Cade Klubnik and Ben Gulbranson and Darian Mensah. They're all below 47%. But like, what's funny is as I look at the stats, like, he's been kept clean on almost 70% of his dropbacks. That's good. He's completing about 70% of his passes from a clean pocket. He's also got 2 of his 3 interceptions from a clean pocket. Like it's that it's not supposed to work that way. You're not supposed to. Yeah, your completion percentage should drop when you're under pressure, and your turnover worthy plays and interceptions should go up when you're under pressure, but that's not the case with Eli Holstein. Like when he's not blitzed, according to Pro Football Focus, 12% of his throws have been turnover worthy plays. Like that's really bad. Like when he's not blitzed, I mean, that's not supposed to be the way that it works. It feels like it's like backward with him, but he just can't, he's just not been consistent. So I don't know. I mean, no, the offensive line's not great, like you said. Yeah, but you have to deal with that. That's part of it, especially if you're not going to keep the tight ends in to block. And the running backs aren't going to do that much pass blocking. You have to get rid of the ball, and you have to make good decisions, and you have to have accuracy. And he's struggled with a lot of those, particular categories. I want to get into some of the comments and questions here. Josh Newark says, "What bugs me the most about Pat Narduzzi is he always blames losses on execution, which is probably accurate. That said, he fails to account that most college kids aren't perfect and make mistakes. Is he right that it boils down to the players and execution, or is it his way of running away from coaching responsibilities? I don't know, Jim. I feel like he takes blame on the coaches. I think there is certainly blame that can fall on the coaches, but particularly when you have games like the West Virginia game, like that's a lot of screwing up on the field. That's a lot of screwing up on the field. That's missing open receivers. That's taking bad penalties. That's failing to cover the tight end, running up the seam. I mean, some of that's going to be on the scheme and some of that's going to be on the play calling, but like sometimes you do have to just make plays. Like sometimes guys have to go out on the field and they have to make plays. And, a game like that, not only were they not making plays, they were making mistakes. So it's not all on the players, but a lot of times a lot of it's on the players.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, and sometimes, like, in his, like, melancholy, like, post-game press conferences, like, I think, like, misexecution is just kind of all-encompassing. It's not just, like, casting blame on the players. It's, like, a program-wide thing. Like, we didn't execute well. It's not like my quarterback didn't execute well. We, as an offense, did not execute well. So I think it's kind of, like, I don't know, like, those press conferences, like, after games when they lose, they're short, concise. You don't always get a ton. Let me watch the film, that kind of thing. But like, I don't think he's ever really throwing people under the bus after those losses. Maybe he has a couple times. I'm sure he has. But like, I don't think whenever he says misexecution, it's just like absolving the coaches of anything.
Yeah. And I think too, like right after the game, he's thinking about what he saw in the game. And I'm sure he's thinking of like 100 different instances where, they were lining up on defense and he was like, okay, we think they're going to do this or we think they're going to do that. So as long as our guys do this, as long as the linebacker goes left, we're going to be good. And then the offense does exactly what he expected, but the linebacker goes right. And he's like, oh, if you had just gone, you know what I mean? If you had just gone left, we were all set for that. But that's kind of part of it. And then I think later, as he watches the film, he's like, oh, I see why that guy went left. We didn't give him good coaching on what he should do in that situation. So it's, there's a little of all of it. Usually, I mean, when you have, 11 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense, all the reserves, all the coaches, like it takes a big group of people. And usually most of them screw up in some way to lead to a loss. And a lot of times most of them screw up in some way and in a win. Josh Newark says, I wish Pat Narduzzi would allow his offense to play as aggressive as he forces his defense to, not punting on a 4th and 4 under 3 minutes against West Virginia. I mean, I think they've been more aggressive in recent years. I don't think Narduzzi's been as conservative in the past few years as he was at one point. I think he still makes conservative decisions sometimes. I think about there was the Miami game in 2021. I forget the exact situation in the game, but they punted from plus territory. And it was like, what are you doing? Why would you punt in that situation? You can't punt. And it worked out almost perfectly. The defense got a 3 and out. They forced a punt. The punt gave Pitt the ball in good field position. Then I think Kenny Pickett threw an interception. And so it's like, well, it's not always a bad idea to punt in that situation. Sometimes you have a feel for the game and you feel like you can make this play or make that play. And, that all worked until the Heisman Trophy finalists threw a pick that kind of sealed the game. I think we probably talked did we talk last week about the 4th and 4, the punt from the 37? I mean, I don't know. What conclusion do we come to? They should have gone for it, or we understand where he was coming from?
A little bit of both. I mean, I think in that situation, like you have 4 yards and you win the game. Like I understand, like if you want to arrive at that decision, I think that's the right one. And if you don't get it, like you're still trusting your defense to protect 60 yards or whatever. I get that. But I also get like him arriving that, okay, Nico Marchiol is not going to beat me in a 90-yard drive with 2 minutes left in the game. Like I feel like my defense can get one stop there. So like, I think both situations, both scenarios, like there were risk involved. But they both involved your defense coming up with a big stop in a pretty long field. So like, I kind of wanted them to go for it. I kind of wanted to see what that would look like. But at the same time, I don't know. They were kind of banged up at that point. Like some of your best playmakers weren't even on the field. Like you had like Ja'Kirian Turner, like playing key possessions, key plays, like in the 4th quarter, trying to run out a game. Like I think Blue Hicks was on the sideline. Desmond Reed's on the sideline. So like at a certain point, like you kind of have to like, take your gambles and like look who's around. Like, okay, my quarterback's struggling, my best offensive player is not on the field. I trust my defense to get this 90-yard stop. I get that. But sometimes you do want to see that, like, okay, let's just get 4 yards and win the game.
Yeah. And also maybe, the drive that ended with that punt, maybe, hand it off on first down, try to run it and try to take more time off the clock rather than, rather than throwing. I think we talked about that last week as well. It's interesting. I don't feel like it's always the case in the official stat book of like putting in the time putting in the time on the clock of each snap. So it is here on that drive where the first play was on at 5:02. And because they threw the ball and it was an incomplete pass, the next snap had to come at 4:58. And then they ran 31 seconds after that. They went from 4:27 to 3:48 after that. So that's another 39 seconds. I mean, they ran the clock down pretty good there. They ran 43 seconds. So they did run it after that first play, but you could have taken another 40 seconds or so. And then West Virginia gets the ball with about 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes. Who knows? It's all, oh, they could have done this, they could have done that. I mean, we'll keep doing that because that's what we do, but we've also done a lot of it already. Pitt Forever says, AD, athletic department NIL directors have experience in national branding and partnership development. See Duke hiring Nike's branding executive, Syracuse buying the nation's largest NIL arranger. Pitt moved an athletic department fundraiser into the job. This is not how you construct a serious NIL effort. What happened? So yeah, Pat Bostic's going to be heading up some of that. I think, so I get where you're coming from. I think you have to look at how Pitt intends to do this and what kind of role Pat Bostic is going to be filling. I think the idea, Jim, and I think it's part of why they sort of took on the Alliance 412 role and eliminated the collective, is because they felt like they could leverage Pitt's business relationships into more NIL opportunities than the collective was able to do. And that might be right. You know what I mean? That, like, you're the University of Pittsburgh. You should have business, relationships and connections beyond what Alliance 412 has. I mean, I think that makes sense. Pat Bostic has been doing this for a long time, working on the fundraising arm, fundraising area of the department, fundraising wing, I guess. He should have some connections and contacts. Like, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I also don't know if Pitt's really in a position to hire too many people from outside to take on some of these roles. I mean, they were in a hiring freeze at some point earlier this calendar year.
It still might be.
So, I see people get hired, but so I don't know. I get where they're coming from. I think I get what they're trying to do in terms of open up new avenues for the student athletes to get NIL deals. And Pat, like I said, I think he's probably made a lot of connections and contacts over the years. So maybe he can help facilitate some of those.
Yeah, and like I get like the frustration of like wanting to see like a splashier move or like a bigger name or something attached to like Pitt's NIL collective and whatever this is going to be from moving forward. I don't know. We just kind of need to see it play out. Like, I need to see like a full season of like what an Alan Green administration looks like, a full season of revenue sharing. Like, I kind of want to just experience for a year, then critique it like to a certain point, because I still don't know how it all entirely works. But I don't know. I get it. Like, Pat Bostic's like just a guy that's been around. Like, he works for the university. He loves Pitt, bleeds blue and gold as much as anyone. But like sometimes, like in today's era, you want to see those big splashy moves. You want to see things like that. And like, I even go back to like basketball when they hired their general manager. Like, I thought that was a good move just because like there was some name recognition there and there was something, behind it. And I don't know if football needs that. I don't think Doug Whaley's quite that. So like it would be kind of unique to maybe see a prominent player or ex-player or notable person to just kind of fill that role.
Yeah.
I just don't know who it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you wonder about like, so many of these athletic department hires, not necessarily at Pitt, but in like around the country, athletic directors and people like that are coming from like broadcasting, the business world and the entertainment world. And it's different than, people would come up through an athletic department and work their way up and they'd be in compliance or they'd be in donor, fundraising or whatever it is, and eventually they would work their way in. Whereas like a lot of schools, I think, are hiring just people with little to no experience in the world of athletic departments, a lot of experience in selling sponsorships, a lot of people experience in dealing with TV and broadcasting and things like that. And so it's an interesting sort of shift in how this role is being filled. And I don't know, like we don't talk very often, probably because we have no idea what it is, or what it'll look like. But like we don't talk very often about like, I wonder what the role of an athletic director will be 5 years from now. Like we talk a lot about general managers and how a head coach's job has changed, but like an athletic director, like you can keep talking about, championships and excellence and all this other stuff. But like what it's really going to come down to is like, have you set the table for your football and men's basketball programs to compete? And that's always kind of been an important priority for athletic directors. But like, I think that job is going to change significantly in what it looks like and the types of people who get those jobs and how they approach them and maybe even what they're called. I think that's going to change a lot in the next 5 to 10 years because there are going to be different responsibilities and different duties for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I mean, you could see like maybe not so much like a general manager, but like when you look at a baseball team, like they have a team president, and like that might be like what the role of an athletic director is now, like overseeing that. But like specifically, you're really only overseeing football and basketball. Like those are the two things, and so like it's kind of like a hybrid role. Like you're not the one in talent acquisition, but you're in charge of the person who's involved in talent acquisition, I guess.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I've got Pitt. It's tie in the second set, 23-23. Is that what you're seeing also, Jim? Am I ahead of you? Am I spoiling it for you?
No, that's where I'm at.
Okay. Do you have the stream and the stat broadcast open, or are you just streaming?
I just trust the YouTube TV right now.
Oh, okay. I have both open, and so I just saw Olivia Babcock get the game tying point, and God, she's such a killer. I mean, like just straight up murdering out there. It's fun to watch. Patrick McKinney is a super chatter, says Ham coming 11:15. See you there, Chris. I don't know. Homecoming is not that weekend. Homecoming is the NC State game on October 25th. 11:15 is the Notre Dame game. Ham coming. Is there a joke that I'm missing here? Did you mistype, Jim? What do you think? What's happening here?
I'm not sure.
Is this another one of your Johnstown people?
Patrick McKinney is from Johnstown.
So this is a Johnstown. Okay.
But he said Chris. He's talking to you.
He did. Is he coming? Are you bringing him to the game?
I don't know.
All right. Maybe he wants to see Aaron Donald's number retired. Finally happened, Jim. I've been advocating for this for a long time. I don't know if I've done it on this show or not, like since you and I started doing the podcast together, or if I've just done it on the message boards or social media or whatever. But like, I've always said this was the one number left that was out there that needed to be retired, that there's nothing else that you could, and people would say Curtis Martin or the, 25 for LaShawn McCoy and Darrelle Revis or 24 for James Conner. I said, no, and no. 97 is the only other number that has truly earned the distinction to be retired. I think you could even make a case that maybe not all of the numbers that have been retired should be retired, but 97 is one. Do you have any qualms or even slight hesitation about this number being retired for Aaron Donald?
No, none whatsoever. I mean, I think what needs to qualify to have your number retired. I think we talked about this when someone brought up 25. Darrelle Revis and LaShawn McCoy were really good Pitt football players. I don't know if you could say they were at the very top of their game at any point during their careers at Pitt, in terms of college football. Was LaShawn McCoy the absolute best running back in college football in 2007, 2008? Probably not.
Probably not.
Was Darrelle Revis he was an all Big East cornerback. That's great. And he went on and had a great NFL career. That doesn't warrant getting your number retired. When you look at Aaron Donald, he was arguably the best player in college football in 2013. There was nobody more dominant. He was tackling 3 guys at a time. He put up numbers that were insane. And then he went in the NFL and backed it up and did it. And, was a 3-time defensive player of the year, 8-time All-Pro. He has every credential that is there. So, I mean, when you look at the retired numbers, I think he's the 11th, I think.
Yep.
And only the 3rd defensive player, I believe.
Oh, is that right? I didn't notice that. Let me look. I've got the media guide here because I've been digging up a bunch of things on this.
So I think it's Joe Schmidt and Hugh Green and Aaron Donald.
Yeah, you're right. Did Ditka play both sides?
He might. I don't know.
He might have just been a tight end. It's always to say he's an end is always how they list it. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. The only defensive player. I'm going back and looking now to see where LaShawn McCoy was when he was a freshman. He was 25th in the nation in rushing yards. So obviously, pretty well off the pace. But that was the year Kevin Smith had 2,500 rushing yards at UCF, which is pretty sick. Matt Forte rushed for 2,000 yards at Tulane, and Ray Rice rushed for 2,000 yards at Rutgers. So you had 3 2,000-yard rushers in 2007, which is pretty ridiculous. There was also like Darren McFadden, Jonathan Stewart, Rashard Mendenhall, Jamal Charles. Like there were some really good running backs in college football that year. 2008, McCoy's second year, he was 9th in the country in rushing with 1,400 yards. Donald Brown at Connecticut had 2,000 yards. Sean Green, Javon Ringer, Javid Bet. This is like the who's who of like crappy running backs I drafted in fantasy football. Donald Green, Donald Brown, Sean Green, Javon Ringer, and Javid Best. I had all those guys. Probably Kendall Hunter from Oklahoma State at one point too. Noshawn Marino. Remember Noshawn Marino?
Yeah, he was pretty sick.
He had 1,400 yards at Georgia. I mean, there were some really good running backs. Maybe. So I think Darren McFadden finished second in the Heisman Trophy in 2007. That might have been the year. Was that the year they busted out the Wildcat with him and
they had Peyton Hillis, Felix Jones.
Jones. It was Darren McFadden and Felix Jones were sick together. I forget. I think did Pitt learn it from them or did they learn it from Pitt? I think Pitt might have learned it from them. Either way, it doesn't matter. So yeah, to your point, like was McCoy ever no, and he wasn't the best running back in college football. He was awesome. I don't think there's any question about that, but he was probably not the best. An interesting thing I found, and I wrote about this in the 321 column for Friday because I got this part done. I've actually mentioned it on the Morning Pit tomorrow. Right now, there are currently 2 former Pitt players who were unanimous first team All-Americans. They're in the College Football Hall of Fame and they're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There are currently 2 players that applies to. Can you name them?
Wait, so unanimous
first team All-American, College Football Hall of Famer, Pro Football Hall of Famer.
Bill Fralick?
Negative. Damn. Bill Fralick. Wait, I'll tell you what he's missing. Where did I write this down? Bill Fralick is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But he was a 2-time unanimous All-American, and he's in the College Football Hall of Fame.
I think my favorite thing about him is like he got Heisman votes as an offensive lineman. That is so awesome.
He is one of the all-time greats. I don't think there's any we don't have to go down the Mount Rushmore conversation. It is a game week, so we don't need to bother with that. But I don't know if he's on Mount Rushmore, but I'm not going to fight him to keep him off. Him in his prime, if he's I'm up there, I'd be like, okay, go ahead, take it, sir.
All right. So Dorsett.
Yes.
Who would the other one be? Jimbo Covert?
No, Jimbo Covert was never a first team unanimous All-American. Mike Ditka. Mike Ditka is the other one.
Okay.
I think next year, Larry Fitzgerald will go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He'll be the 3rd because he's already in the College Football Hall of Fame. He was a unanimous first team All-American. By 2029, Aaron Donald will become the 4th. because he'll go into the College Football Hall of Fame, I think next year, actually. And then in 2029, he'll be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he'll be a sure thing first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, there won't be any hesitation with that. So that's 4 guys in all of Pitt football history who are unanimous first team All-American, College Football Hall of Famer, Pro Football Hall of Famer. And like, Aaron Donald is in that group. Is that the Mount Rushmore of Pitt football players of all time? Dorsett, Ditka, Donald, Fitzgerald.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. Like, I mean, like, again, like just basing it off of college careers, like, it's hard to like leave off Bill Fralick just
Right.
like that
Or
is
Hugh
so-
Green.
Yeah,
I mean,
or
Hugh Green,
Hugh Green.
like Hugh Green and Bill Fralick are the only 2-time unanimous first team All-Americans in Pitt history. It's those guys. Like, that's how good they were. They were legitimately the best. And like, the unanimous part is like a big one to me, because like, okay, you're a first team All-American. That's amazing. Like, you know, you are widely considered the best at your position. Like, unanimous means like everybody was like, definitely, that is the best wide receiver in the country. That's the best defensive tackle in the country. That's the best offensive lineman. So, and to do that twice, there aren't many who have accomplished that at Pitt or anywhere. Fralick and Green are not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but like the 2-time. So if you're talking about Pitt careers, like, it's hard to leave Fralick and Green off, but I don't know who, like, you're not taking Tony Dorsett off. I'll fight you if you try and take Larry Fitzgerald off. And I really don't think you can take Aaron Donald off either. So I guess it's Mike Ditka versus Bill Fralick versus Hugh Green, which in their primes, if they actually got into a fist fight, that would be awesome. Like, that would be an incredible battle royale with the 3 of them in the prime physical condition, like fighting each other. I would love that. I don't know who I would take, but that's I don't know. Is there anybody you would drop Ditka for?
I think it's a good argument. It was, I almost like panicked there for a second because you froze, like, and like your screen went away, and I thought, like, yeah,
was I still talking, or what did I?
I kind of like froze like during your little thing, so I was like, oh no, like now I'm in charge of the live stream. People are going to start asking me questions, but no, that didn't happen. At least
all I said is that I would like to see, in their physical prime, Bill Fralick, Mike Ditka, and Hugh Green fight in a battle royale for like the 4th spot on the, because they'd just be an awesome fight.
Yeah, it would be.
Because I would be terrified of all those guys. All right, let's get through some comments and questions here. Pitt Fan H2P says, huge game for the program this week, a must win. You know what the thing is to me about this game and next week with Boston College? Like, you're not talking about Florida State and Miami here. You're talking about all these teams that are in sort of the middle of the conference, right? These are the games that will determine whether you're in the bottom of the middle or the top of the middle. And I don't really know about Louisville, and I don't really know about Pitt, and I don't really know about a bunch of these teams. That's why these games are so interesting to me and so big, because they'll truly determine where you are in this conference more than how you stack up against the top of the league. It's how do you stack up against these sort of peer programs. And yeah, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot riding on. I think it's a huge game for being the first ACC game of the season. I think it's a huge one for Pitt.
Yeah, and I think we talk all the time. There's such a fine line between going 6-6 and 9-3, and it's these games right here. Like, this is what determines it. Like, there's not a big difference between a 9-3 team and a 6-6 team. But at the end of the year, if you're 9-3, you might sneak into the top 25, play in a half decent bowl game, and feel good about yourselves. And like, I think that's kind of what Pitt is striving to do right now. So yeah, this is huge. And I think just because you lose to a rival, that stings. You lose to a rival, then you have a bye week. It stings, then you have to sit in it. So yeah, like, I think it's a big game for them. And I think there's just, not only is it just a big program game, but like, I think people like Eli Holstein, like, I think this is a really big game for him. I think this kind of determines where things go next. If I don't know, and we've talked about, I don't know what the number is. I don't know what it needs to look like for him to be pulled from a game. But like, I would think this is the game where they have to make that determination.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's one of the big points of intrigue for this week, for sure. Dale Gribble wants to know, stop me if you've heard this before. Will Desmond Reed play this Saturday? I'm not expecting him to play. We'll see what happens. It could, he could have a miraculous recovery. I have no idea. Bengali Kamara at Kansas in like week 2 was ruled out on Monday. worked his tail off through the week and, played that Saturday against Missouri. He's having a really good season. So shout out to him. I mean, things can happen. I don't see it happening. The injury report comes out, though, tomorrow night, Jim. You excited for this?
You know what? I am. I just want to see what it looks like. It's been a while, so I don't know. Like, is he just going to list all 105 guys as questionable?
I think so. In case people don't know the schedule, so there'll be the initial report comes out tomorrow night by 8:00. The updated report comes out Friday by 8:00. The game day report comes out at least 2 hours before the game. My guess, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Brom does this too, is that unless there's a season-ending injury, everybody's you can either be available, questionable, doubtful, or out. The season-ending injury guys who have already been announced will be out. Everybody else will either be available or questionable. And there'll probably be a lot of questionables. On Friday, maybe we'll get some doubtfuls added or changed. And then on Saturday, we'll actually get, truth of guys being listed as out. So my guess is that we'll see Desmond Reed as questionable tomorrow, maybe doubtful on Friday, and then out on Saturday is my guess. Do you think that's how they'll approach it?
Yeah, I just wonder when Pete Thamel's going to tweet out that Desmond Reed's officially out, because, that's how it's going to break.
So the game day report has to be at least 2 hours before kickoff. So I'm guessing he'll be on that at least 3 hours before kickoff. Voodoo IPA says after the game on Saturday, if you attend, head over to Noah Legacy Foundation event at Allegheny Landing Park. Starts at 4:00. Join me in tribute of pediatric cancer patients and one soon passed. That's a pretty nice invitation and a nice event. Hopefully anybody who's at the noon kickoff can head over there at 4:00 to the Allegheny Landing Park. I think that's right in the North Shore, right?
Yeah, I think you just kind of go up the hill from the Clark Bar.
Right. It's just it's up that way. Not
I think
it's like north side. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's around there. I'm sure you could Google it and find it easily. Voodoo IPA also says it'll be a long day on the North Shore, beginning with an 8:00 tailgate. That is a long day. I'll be exhausted to start it that day, or to start it that early. Mark Shillaju says, seems like the defense is getting a pass. Going back to 2024, the Pitt defense has given up their last 3 fourth quarter leads, all losses. Many who played 2 weeks ago were also on the field for those 2024 collapses. I just can't get on the defense too hard when the offense has been such a mess, right? I think that's consensus, Jim. Like the offense has just been such a mess that I can't really give the defense too hard of a time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I look back and, dating back to last year with the losing streak and even some of the wins in the West Virginia game. So over Pitt's last 8 games against Power 4 teams, they've scored 17 offensive touchdowns. That's bad. So, you're really, yeah.
How many games?
8
games. So they're averaging 2 touchdowns per game in their last 8 games against Power 4 opponents.
So, yeah, whatever you box, and that goes back to the Cal 17-15 game, the Syracuse game where the defense outscored the offense, obviously the losing streak after that, and the West Virginia game where they only scored 2 touchdowns. So, right now, the defense needs to come up with a stop. Nico Marchiel's not a very good quarterback. Come up with a stop, finish the game and win it. I'm all for that, and they should have to wear that. But for large stretches of the game, they were doing a good job. West Virginia had 7 points at halftime. Pitt was up. There was a lot there for the offense to just build the lead where the defense doesn't even have to make that stop. So I get it. They have to wear that. There are things about that defense that are somewhat concerning, but for the most part, it looks like a Pitt defense. It looks like a Pat Narduzzi defense. You kind of know what you're going to get with them. There is some gambling in there. They're going to miss out on some big plays, but for the most part, they're going to get their sacks. They'll get their turnovers. They'll stop the run. You just kind of if you score enough points, they're going to keep you in most games and give you a winning performance 90% of the time, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I think perfection is the kind of thing that you can be like, hey, great job. That was perfection. That was amazing to see. But I don't think I can't get too hard on a group if, for not being perfect. And it sort of feels like for Pitt's defense in this stretch of games, like you just mentioned, the 8 games, they needed perfection to make up for what they were being dealt from the offense, or just to do it themselves like they were doing against Syracuse. I mean, for all the rushing that we talked about, or all the rushing that West Virginia had, I think the first quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, they averaged less than 2.2 yards per carry in each of those three quarters. They had a big second quarter, and I think they were 3 or so yards per carry in overtime. But like, West Virginia got all those rushing yards because they kept banging their head against the wall, running the ball 58 times. Like, it wasn't like they were having that much success. They just kept doing it, and they wore Pitt's defense down, playing 90 snaps. Louisville is playing like 60 snaps per game offensively. I think that's a better setup for Pitt's defense, which, I think the legitimate criticism of Pitt's defense right now is the depth, either by injury at linebacker or just choosing not to rotate. They didn't even rotate the defensive linemen that much. They really only played like 3 ends and 3 tackles, right? Because it was like Spires, Scott, and Crothers played almost all the snaps. Zielinski got a little bit at defensive end. And at tackle, I guess they played 4 because they had James, Fitzsimmons, Brew, and Neal. So they had, a little bit more rotation there, but hardly any rotation in the back 7. And those guys wore down. But 5 of 17 on third down, 3 touchdowns in regulation, 2 touchdowns for the first 59 minutes and 49 seconds. Like, they needed one more stop to win the game, but they are getting a pass, right? I think I am giving them a pass. I think Mark Shillaju said this as like a bad thing. It seems like the defense is getting a pass. I would say you're right. I am giving them a pass. You are too?
Yeah, and it kind of feels like, just because, like, obviously, like, we're both aware, like, the Steelers too, and it's the same thing. Like, everyone gets like so crazy, like, whenever the Steelers give up like any sort of plays, but like at the end of the game, it's like, buddy, like, you're winning, you're trying to win game 21-17. Like, there is such a small window, like, for success and error on both sides of the ball. So like, anytime the defense gives up anything, you're just like, oh my God. But like, to a lesser extent, that's kind of what happens with Pitt. Like, yeah, they could be better. Like, yeah, like, come up with a few more plays. But like, I don't know, like, most games, like, if they end with like 5 of 17 on third downs, 14 points through 55 minutes, 4 or 5 sacks, 2 turnovers, like, that's right. What you want. Like, that's what you want your defense to do.
Yeah. Except for the Steelers, getting the ball run down their throat by the Ravens last year. But, other than that, you're right. And also that snow game in Cleveland, that one, the defense gets no pass for that one. TJ Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick made like 1 tackle, and it was the one time they actually shouldn't have made a tackle. They should have let Nick Chubb just score so they could get the ball back quicker, but instead they tackled him at like the 3. So it was the only contribution those guys made to that game. Thank God it was snowing, because I mean, it had like the 2 best possible elements you could have for like sort of chaos and fun in a football game. It was snowing, and Jameis Winston was involved. And if you have a game with Jameis Winston and snow, like, I'm there all day. I will watch that. I hope it goes to overtime and lasts like 60 hours, because crazy stuff is going to happen. And that was absolutely the case. Anyway, Swim Boyd wants to know, do you think Pat Narduzzi was serious about meeting with the media on off weeks over Zoom? I mean, I would like to. It would probably be in his benefit, because then he wouldn't have to have us come out like 2 weeks after the game and ask him about the last game that was 2 weeks ago that he doesn't want to talk about anymore. But I don't think he'll actually do it. Dale Gribble says West Virginia is terrible. They lost to Kansas 41-10. This might be a rough year. I mean, it might be a rough year, but I mean, like, yeah, West Virginia is not good. I don't necessarily think they're better than Pitt. I don't think they were better than Pitt. I think Pitt blew it multiple times, right? Isn't this the consensus we've come to, or the agreement we've come to about this, Jim?
Yeah, like, because I went into that game pretty skeptical of West Virginia, and I didn't walk out of that game feeling better about them. Like, no. I still had a lot of question marks about them. And I think going into that game, we said, what needs to happen for West Virginia to win and Pitt to lose is a bunch of dumb things Pitt would do. And that's exactly what happened. So like, you always get that rivalry factor whenever you play down there and I play against them. Like, it's just like, you're getting their best shot. Just don't shoot yourself in the foot. And they just did that about a million. They blew their foot off, basically.
Yep. So many times. There you go. Mark Shoji wants to know, hypothetical scenario. Eli Holstein struggles in the first quarter. Does he get the hook? Does he have to throw an interception in the first quarter? It can't just be some bad incomplete passes, right?
Yeah, if the score is close and it's just like a defensive, much like the West Virginia game, a 7-3, just ugly slugfest, they might leave him in there. But like if he starts turning the ball over, like if Louisville starts putting points on the board, you're kind of in a bind. Like you almost have to. So I think the score will dictate what happens with Eli more so than like just his own struggles.
Right. See, people are arguing about Narduzzi, which is always fun. Let's scroll through here, see what else we have in the last few minutes. Paul Sebastian wants to know, Chris and Jim, out of the last two retired numbers, Aaron Donald and Larry Fitzgerald, who did you enjoy watching more and who had a bigger impact for Pitt long term? I mean, to the question of who did I enjoy watching more, I mean, like Aaron Donald was phenomenal. He was one of the most exciting defensive linemen I've ever seen. But like Larry Fitzgerald was superhuman. I mean, like Larry Fitzgerald was like, you got excited as soon as the ball was snapped and Rod Rutherford started dropping back because you were like, oh, buddy, here he goes. He's going to throw it to Larry. And most of the times he did throw it to Larry. And this was after like being excited for a couple of years of like, oh boy, he's going to throw it deep to Antonio Bryant. I mean, not with Rutherford all the time, but like, and then, Fitzgerald was just, it was something else because there was never a ball in the air that you didn't think he was going to catch. It was a shock when he didn't catch it. He's one of the greatest college football players I've ever seen. Aaron Donald is right up there, but like there are a few guys I have seen that are just more, I don't know, just leave you saying like, what? How did he do that? That's amazing. And to almost to the point where the amazing things he did became kind of routine, but they were still really amazing. So I'd probably have to go with Larry.
I would say Larry too, just because like his freshman year, I think Pitt won 9 games. So they went into that 2003 season, like they were preseason number 9. Larry Fitzgerald, everyone knew who he was. He was a Heisman contender before the season even started. They had that great home schedule, like Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, all those big games. Like that just felt like a big season. It just felt like, okay, like Pitt is playing relevant games with the best player in the country every time they walk out on the field. So like, obviously that year didn't go so great, but like there was more buzz with that year. Like that was a legitimate Heisman push. And like Aaron Donald played on some bad football teams. Like he was the best player on the field. It did like whenever they played Florida State and like Florida State was the national champion. Like you could still pick out, be like 97 is still probably the best player on the field. Like that wasn't that big of a stretch, but like Pitt just wasn't good. So it kind of like negated the fact that like they had like one of the best defensive linemen of all time.
Yeah. And I want to say they had, Aaron Donald played for 3 different head coaches, permanent head coaches. I guess you can include Mike Haywood and then multiple interim coaches in there, but he had at least 3 different head coaches, 3 different defensive line coaches. I want to say 4 defensive coordinators. I don't think Dave Huxtable made it 2 years with Paul Chryst. I think, do you remember, did he hire Matt House the second year to be the DC or did he wait until the 3rd year? So he might have had 3 or 4 defensive coordinators. He played in some very different defenses too. Like Todd Graham's defense was it was almost like a 3-4 rather than, the 4-3. And he still was like productive and cause he was ridiculous. But I forget where I was even going with that, but he's, despite all the coaching changes and things like that, he had a pretty, he was just outstanding. He was just that good. I got distracted because Rich Campy says Fitzsimmons is an average player, maybe overrated on these social media sites. So I guess technically YouTube is a social media site. He's got numbers, he's got production, he's got 7 pressures through 3 games so far this season. Let me give you in terms of, interior defensive linemen. Should I just look at the ACC?
Sure.
Let's see if we can compare. Pro Football Focus doesn't want to load. Oh, here we go. Pressures, that ranks 10th in the ACC. He is tied with Isaiah Neal and Francis Brew. 10th among interior defensive linemen in pressures, which is pretty good, I think. Particularly given that he's had 53 pass rush snaps and he has 7 pressures. So pretty good win percentage, pretty good pass rush rate. And I think he'll have a pretty good game this weekend. But we'll leave it on Rich's comment. I don't know why Sean Fitzsimmons had to catch some strays at the end there, but we'll do what we had to do. All right, as we go out, Pitt is winning the third set against SMU, 18-13. It's currently tied 1 set each. We'll see how the Panthers do closing it out. It's 19-13 now after a kill by Bree Kelly. So we'll see how the Panthers do closing it out against the Mustangs. Don't forget, Pitt-Louisville, noon on Saturday. And then after the game, a couple hours after the game, we'll have the live Panther-Lair show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, the live Panther-Lair post-game show it is. So make sure you tune in for that. Thanks for watching tonight. Like this video and subscribe, and you won't miss any of our Pitt video content. We'll catch up with you tomorrow for the morning Pitt, and then we will see you on Saturday after the game. So, Jim, thanks for your time. We'll see you at the game on Saturday, and everybody have a good rest of the week. Like and subscribe.